Now, Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda is also promising to refurbish dilapidated properties in the Johannesburg CBD. Gwamanda says this is part of the city's efforts to reclaim hijacked buildings, and it's in light of the Marshalltown fire that claimed the lives of 77 people last August. And of course, as I just said, left scores more displaced. Let's bring in Angela Rivers. She's the general manager with the Johannesburg Property Owners and Managers Association, and she joins us live this afternoon. Angela, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much, as always, for giving us your time. The city of Johannesburg says it will honour Marshalltown fire victims with housing, essentially with fixing hijacked and dilapidated buildings in the CBD. Now, at last count, according to the DA at least, there are more than 180 hijacked buildings in the inner city. If indeed this is true, how big of a job would this be?
So thanks, Michelle, for having me on. So first of all, there's probably close to about 200 buildings that are hijacked in the inner city. And it sounds like a lot, but when you look at the size of the inner city, we're looking at about 2,000 buildings. So this is, in my mind, this is a 10% problem. And when you look at it in those numbers, it is something that can be done.
Yeah. But you know, in my mind, what I'm thinking is, first of all, you know, the scale of the job. We're talking plumbing, electricity connection, the integrity of the building itself that will likely need to be fixed. But where would we put the people who are currently living there while this refurbishment takes place?
So that is the big problem that we have with the hijacked buildings, is that alternative accommodation needs to be sought out. There's many problems within the PI Act, which was initially written to help to ensure that people weren't evicted from properties unnecessarily or illegally. So we have this policy that says you can't evict without alternative accommodation. The alternative accommodation that is being offered is not great. We are talking about tents on pieces of land. The Johannesburg Property Company has access to lots of properties that aren't hijacked, that are empty, that could be turned around really quickly. You know, the price to convert an office block to a residential property can cost anything between 9 million and 18 million rand. And we've done it ourselves, where we can turn these properties, as the private sector, we are able to turn these properties around within 6 to 12 months. The city is taking 2 or 3 years to do the same job. So my challenge then is to the mayor to put your money where your mouth is and contact the people in the private sector, the people from JPOMA. We are an association who have been building affordable housing for 20 years. We know what we're doing.
Yeah. And as you say, you have a track record. The other obvious problem, Angela, is that, I mean, there's a reason why these buildings are hijacked and why they've been hijacked for some time, right? This is not just merely a case of just waltzing in there and, you know, getting people alternative accommodation. These are often people who are armed and dangerous and part of gangs that are running hijacked buildings in the city.
Absolutely, and we've seen it where we have a building in the inner city called Remington House, which was, the eviction was done in November. A lot of the people were moved into informal housing, and the hijackers have gone and said, well, where's my money? How am I going to live now? And now threatening to almost hijack the alternative accommodation. The SAPS and the JMPD and the law enforcement needs to come in and these people have to be held accountable.
Yeah. So you're saying, you know, if indeed the mayor does put his money where his mouth is, as I try to get the phrase right, he's going to need to bring in the private sector, and it's going to have to be a joint operation, especially if we want the turnaround time to go from 3 years to 1 year.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, I was at the eviction last year at Remington House. It's a huge building on the corner of Bree and Nugget Street. Apparently, it is almost finished being renovated, and we are looking at literally 7 months down the line. That building is going to be ready for occupation in the next 2 months.
But Angela, would that mean, if indeed the city does succeed in revamping these hijacked buildings, I mean, obviously then the city would be expecting the payment of rent and services to those apartments that would be leased out?
Absolutely. So one of the big problems that we have with temporary emergency accommodation is that it's free. In my opinion, temporary emergency accommodation should be totally scrapped. The whole concept of temporary, informal, it's actually quite an inhumane process, because you're moving people from a hijacked building into temporary accommodation. If it's a good, well-managed temporary accommodation, they've got 1 year to live there for free, and then after a year, you have to evict them again. I think that whole concept is it doesn't make sense to me. What we should be doing is creating housing, just straight, affordable housing, social housing, where people are responsible for paying towards rent, any rent. You know, they're already paying hijackers 600 Rand a month. We need to find a solution where we can do housing for 600 Rand a month.
Or even double that, but it means you have a building that is structurally sound, and you've got services, you've got electricity, and you've got running water. What would this do for the inner city, Angela, if, you know, we are able to get the situation with hijacked buildings under control? I mean, driving down in the CBD, in particular parts, it's incredibly dangerous, it's incredibly rundown. We're talking about the city of gold here. It's not really anywhere that any of us would go to spend our weekends or our downtime. What would this mean for revamping the entire image of the city, bringing people back into the inner city, making it a place that we all want to be?
So it's interesting enough, this morning I was in a session with an organization called Josie My Josie, which is all the big corporates like Anglo, Standard Bank, ABSA, TAF, the big finance companies and big corporates who have got together, and their sole goal is to revitalize the inner city. We're working with them in conjunction with health and with safety, security, cleanliness, and combating the problem of hijacked buildings. So I think it's the start is definitely to find ways to get these buildings cleaned up and people coming back into the inner city to live. But once you do that, then you're opening up other opportunities like the retail. I heard a story this morning while I was in the session that Dis-Chem opened up in Gandhi Square, and everyone that they employ to work there are living in the inner city. And that is the goal, cutting down on transport costs, getting more money into the residents' pockets with all the escalating tariffs and all these other things that we have to pay for. Let's look at these ways where we can keep costs down where we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the benefits are incredible if indeed we can get this right. Angela Rivers, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. Angela is the General Manager. She's with the Johannesburg Property Owners and Managers Association.